Hello, everyone. This is A Bit of Business. My name is John FitzGerald, and on behalf of Lear Media TV and the British and Irish Trading Alliance, welcome to the show. Our episode today is a special edition, 10 years, 10 questions, with Paul Whitnell, the president and founder and driving force behind BITA, which he set up in 2012. After 10 years of hard work, Paul has now multiple chapters across Ireland and the UK with BITA, with about 700 member companies representing over 15,000 people, plus a global forum chapter made up of folks across the globe as BITA has gone international. Paul, welcome to the show this morning.
Good morning, John. How are you?
Good, thank you. So, to mark the occasion of 10 years of the British and Irish Trading Alliance, we have 10 quick-fire questions for you, one for each year that BITA has been established. So, why did you set up BITA 10 years ago?
I suppose on reflection, it was to do with the change that I had gone through coming over from the Ireland to the UK, whereby there was a different culture, there was a different process in terms of meeting people. And it was my frustration led to me having to think outside the box and create an organization that BITA would then help those who were in a similar position going forward. But then the realization also was that I believe that my generation are responsible for the demise of better practice. I feel that we were looking for a cheaper, faster, quicker way in everything. And there's when you have that type of mentality creeping into life, it's not healthy. And when you have it creeping into business, it's costly. So BITA is created with solid values, firm values in the sense of that we are a genuine, caring operation, community of people who have transparency, integrity, passion, and delivery. And it's as simple as that. And when you have that combination of people working together with that honesty and transparency, it creates a wonderful community.
What would you do differently if you were starting all over again, Paul?
I think I didn't understand how important it is to underline the values as quickly as possible with an organization. Unfortunately, when you're building something, you've got to go through the test of time. And if I underlined the values quicker, the organization would have probably gathered momentum in certain areas quicker as well. And what that does then is it helps the organic growth of the organization. So now we have 750, 800 members. For a time, it was very difficult to show the uses of what we were doing with 200 and 300 members. So now that we're up to a level where you can actually showcase what the organization and benefits of the organization and its value is. Its values are very, very important, that people understand the clarity and governance of the organization. So I suppose that would be one of the key areas that I would have probably contemplated doing differently next time around, if I can.
We'll come back to the values in a second, Paul, but what's been the most difficult challenge you've faced along the way?
I suppose it's coping with life in terms of the changes that have happened in the last 10 years. If you look and reflect on what's happened, we've had a pandemic, we've had, a recession, we've had several things thrown at us, and it's important to show the resilience of ourselves in pivoting and changing in times. And we tend to rest on our laurels when we create some success. I think that the lesson learned there is you've got to continue to pivot. You've got to continue to drive things forward for success to continue also.
Well, you've done that. You have driven the organization forward. And has the success of BITA and the growth of the community surprised you in any way?
It hasn't necessarily surprised me because I always had the vision that this was needed. What it's done is it's delighted me that we actually do have genuine people who come up to me on a day-to-day basis and tell me how it's benefited them. You have the skeptics on the other side who actually never understand it or don't want to understand it. And that's down to their values, if you ask me. But you have the genuine people who have put their heart and soul into it, as have I, and they have benefited greatly, and they've communicated that. And it's a joy to hear some of those stories.
So the values you talked about, passion, integrity, delivery, where do they come from, Paul?
As a collective, we speak. When we set up BITA wasn't about one person. It was about a collective of people. And those values were from the first meeting. I'll always remember the first meeting was, I was asked the question, what is BITA? And I answered the question, it's people who know people that help people. And it was from that we decided to drill down into what that means. What does that entail? And how is it heard? And how do we speak? And all of these things, we put a bit of devil in that detail. And today we have a firm grip on what it's all about and our vision and where we're going and our goals. And it's important that you actually do that early days in any organization to get your messaging right.
So you mentioned people who know people that help people. And that slogan for BITA seems to have stuck. Why does that resonate with people?
I think it's very simple. And sometimes in life, you've got to make it simple. When you do make it simple, it's understandable, it's clear in its communication, it's attainable, achievable, measurable. And all of these things is what resonates with people then when you make that quite simple. So it's something that, we have to remind ourselves that life is very simple and we make it complicated too many times. Too many things happen to actually make life complicated. And it's when you peel it back and you simplify things, that's when you work it out.
So after 10 years of hard work, what are you most proud of about BITA, Paul?
I don't see it. I see 10 years passing very quickly, first of all. And I don't see, I actually see it the next 10 years of work to do. I don't see it as work done. I'm delighted now that I'm not on my own. There's quite a number of people on the journey with me. So that's a joy because when you're banging your own drum all the time, it's quite difficult. So to have a community of people supporting this and believing in it as I do is a joy. So that's kind of a very reassuring feeling to have. For me, I really do think that we've got work to do. We've got work to do in important things ourselves as people, the planet, sustainability, social impact. We've realized, I think, in the last couple of years in particular, that leaning on governments all the time is not probably the right answer. There has to be people have to speak. And when they do so, they have to do so with a bit of clarity, and they've got to think about what they're doing themselves as well. So having an organization like BITA and organizations similar to it is something like collaboration is very, very important. And I think people need to collaborate more. I think, communities need to be created and made stronger. So this is what is resonating with me. It's the bigger picture. And I think it's important that we're only one organization, that many, many organizations of the same type have to be made to actually make life better. And if you look at the world today, all the difficulties and challenges that we face, the wars that are on, and it's not the way forward. So what we've got to do is find that piece of harmony, and values are based and built around that.
So you mentioned the work ahead. What do you think BITA will look like in 10 years' time, Paul?
Well, the world is becoming a smaller place in terms of communication. So if you look at what happened during COVID, Zoom, for instance, became the norm and became an easy way of us to communicate and accepted that communication as well. So I think that's made it easier to actually get our messaging out there. But I think now what we've got to do is understand what's important to tackle in agendas and get that collective really going and resonating. And then we'll see the fruits of our labor happening. I think the younger generation, we've got to spend more time listening to the younger generation and engaging with the younger generation, because they are the future. And I think that communication piece is very important, because if you go back to my original statement of the demise of better practice, I think that's where the gap became alive. I think there was, if you look at the way I was reared, honesty, integrity, passion, there was a gap there, and there was a generation missed in terms of messaging. So that needs to be repaired. And I think how we can start that process is by listening to the younger generation, re-educating them in lots of ways, and letting them re-educate us as well, understanding how they feel, and bridging that gap. So communication is the key to everything here.
Where does your passion and drive come from?
It's a great question. I suppose my belly is the answer to that. I was always very driven in a certain way, and the confidence that it might appear to be there, believe it or not, is not. Sometimes it's a lonely place, leadership, and sometimes I feel, am I doing the right thing? But one thing I did get, and I suppose I got this from my dad, and the messaging from him was to drive forward and not to be afraid, because mistakes are to be made and you can learn from mistakes. So therefore, don't be afraid to make them. And that was very important. My passion is, I suppose, 10 years of the experience has shown me that this is very worthwhile. And I believe that if we leave it to others, well, then it's not going to happen. So take it on yourself.
Last question for you, Paul. What's your message to anyone out there listening who's thinking about joining BITA?
Well, there's a slogan that I use an awful lot, and that is, together we are stronger. I would ask people to have a listen to what we're saying as an organization. And because as an organization, as we grow with the right people who engage in the right way, we will be stronger. And if you look at what we've done in certain aspects of our growth in the last 10 years, the campaigns that we've taken on, like Be Plastic Aware, the Labour campaign recently in London, and the successes that are attached to that, those successes are down to people. Those successes are down to not just one individual, they're down to the power of people. And that's what we have as an organization now. We're respected for that. We have the integrity attached to it. So what we're saying is, look at BITA in just not one way, in many ways, in terms of how you can utilize the organization to benefit you. You can learn, you can save costs, you can be part of the community, you can be part of a culture, you can be successful as a number. And that's what BITA has to offer anybody. It's a number of things, not just one. So I would ask people to seriously consider strengthening this community and doing that, not just in Britain, Ireland, doing it all over the world, because communication is key to the success of our future.
Very good. Well, that's 10 questions and 10 answers, Paul. Many thanks for joining the show once more today. I know for a fact that the BITA community always enjoys hearing directly from you. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been A Bit of Business. My name is John FitzGerald. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you.